Now, the governor of California has signed a law requiring U.S. presidential candidates to release 5 years of tax returns, this before they can appear on the state's ballot. The move is aimed squarely at the U.S. president. Donald Trump has failed to release his tax returns. In the run-up to the election in 2016, he suggested he would release his tax returns once an IRS audit was completed.
All we're requiring is people that aspire to be president, it's not about one person, they have to disclose their tax returns, address issues of self-dealing, conflicts of interest, requiring that regardless of political party. You choose to do the right thing, you could choose not to do the right thing. I think this law is an appropriate law, and I'm glad California is leading the nation in transparency and appropriate financial disclosure.
For more on this story, we can bring in Eric Lisan, legal analyst and former U.S. federal prosecutor. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today. What is this law trying to do?
Well, as you indicated, it is exactly trying to get President Trump to disclose his tax returns, which has been a source of great frustration for much of the United States since he announced his candidacy back in 2015. At first, he said he would disclose them, but for the fact that they were under audit. But if that audit ever finished, that supposed audit, he would release them. But he never did. And as a result, he's the first candidate in many, many years not to have voluntarily disclosed these returns. With all the questions swirling about his connections to Russia and other dealings and reportings with the tax authority, people have many questions, and that's why California has enacted this measure, maybe the first of many states now.
Is it legal for California's governor to do this?
That is a great question, and really nobody can be quite certain how a court will look at this. There are strong arguments on both sides. There is a strong argument that it could be legal, but as also the former governor of California had Jerry Brown decided not to go along with the legislature's desires 2 years ago to enact a very similar law because he felt it might go too far. He didn't necessarily pronounce on the legality or constitutionality of it, but he thought it might be opening the door to things that weren't wise. But the U.S. Constitution only has certain requirements for candidates for presidency. This isn't one of them. So the opponents of the law, like Donald Trump, say that this law must be illegal because it's requiring him to do something that the U.S. federal Constitution doesn't require him to do. The other side of the argument is that it's not a requirement that would preclude him from being president. It's just a transparency obligation to disclose something that he's already done. So it doesn't preclude him. All he has to do is disclose it.
So is that, if you were his lawyer, if you were Donald Trump's lawyer, how would you wrangle him out of this?
The argument is, look, to be under the U.S. Constitution, anybody of a certain age that's a U.S. citizen and
above
a U.S.
35, yeah.
Above 35. It's very simple, really. Anybody above 35 that's born in the United States. So, of course, Trump knows all about that because he accused Obama of not being born in the United States originally. And anybody that's a resident of the United States can be president. On the other hand, the argument is, yes, we're not adding anything to that. We're just saying that in the same manner that somebody has to present a petition with a certain amount of votes to demonstrate that they're a serious candidate, or has to file certain forms, or has to pay certain filing fees, then they must also disclose the tax returns that they filed. It doesn't make anything more complicated. It's just divulging something that's already been done.
A final question for you, Eric, because we have, I want to talk about what's happening in the United States now. We have Democrats in the country that are divided on the issue of impeachment. We have the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, who'd rather let the investigative process take its course. How long will that process take?
That's a great question because it's really dragging on and on and on. And Trump is taking advantage of that. He's dragging his heels. He's delaying. He's forcing every single issue to end up in the courts. There's dozens of cases involving him and involving legal issues that have never squarely been resolved before as a result of this. But the Speaker Speaker Pelosi is facing significant pressure to speed this up. She is viewed as being the one that's actually putting a brake on the process. That were it not for her, everything would be further along, specifically a so-called formal declaration of impeachment. If you look at the actual public declarations of congressmen, over 100 Democratic congressmen are now on the record as saying they support opening a formal impeachment.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Eric Leeson, there, for joining us on the program.